my name is Loretta O'Donnell. I'm Vice Provost for Academic Affairs here at Nazarbayev University. The concept of open access is so important to scholars and researchers here in Kazakhstan. Here at Nazarbayev University, we're very fortunate that we have resources to undertake world-class research with undergraduate students, graduate students, with colleagues from around the world. So this is really a good opportunity for our researchers to think about where they place their research once it's been accepted for peer review publication. Some of our colleagues may not be aware that here at the university, the library is hosting an institutional repository, and many of our colleagues are already including links to their research in that repository, but I would encourage more of our colleagues to do that. It's a great way for scholars to see your work. It's another forum by which to showcase and illustrate your work, but it's also a terrific opportunity for our friends and colleagues here in Kazakhstan to see the work that we're doing, to understand work in sensitive and important areas. For instance, we've got colleagues who are doing research on issues like depression, even suicide, areas that are not being well researched elsewhere in the world, but colleagues here are looking at those and they're starting to publish working papers and peer-reviewed journals. So I would encourage all of our researchers here to look at the library's institutional repository as one important place to showcase their research. We know from our library colleagues that the institutional repository is being accessed by people around Kazakhstan, and it is a chance for them to access information that would otherwise be very hard for them to access. So please, I do encourage you to use this great resource. It's good for you, it's good for your career, it's great for your students because it gives them more opportunities to show their research to the world, but it's really good for Kazakhstan. So please think about that and take the opportunity to display and share your information to the widest possible audience. So when it comes to issues like open access journals, there are many debates about how those journals can work as part of the scholarly landscape. Some open access journals are great, and if you look and see who's on the editorial board, whether they represent strong and robust universities, and when they are scholars in their own right doing great work, those open access journals can be legitimate sources you might like to use for your own publications. Other open access journals, as we know, are not quite so strong. So if in doubt, speak to your librarians. They are professionals. They will be able to give you some guidelines on quality. It's just not worth your time to publish in journals of low quality, whether they're open access or any other kinds of journals. So just check with your librarians in the first instance. Also check with your department chair and with your deans. In our university, the really precious resource is time. Your time as a researcher is really precious and it's finite. So if you're going to publish, focus on quality, not quantity, and focus on the right journals, whether they're open access or whether they're not open access. But the hallmark is always quality. That's really what this university stands for. It stands for quality. So don't waste your time. Go to the journals that are the best journals to showcase your research. Really show it to the world in the company of great editors and great other scholars. Don't waste your time in journals that will diminish your personal reputation. But again, speak to your librarians. They're your best friends in this journey. They can help you. They want you to build your career. They want you to be great. They want you to be known as a researcher. So use those resources. We have some of the best university librarians in Central Asia working here at Nazarbayev University. Engage with them, talk to them, listen to them, learn from them. They can help you and you can help them. And together we'll build a great research university. Good luck.
Well, the first question, what faculty of Nazarbayev University can do to support open access? I think the biggest problem, the biggest difficulty is when faculty hang on to data because they think somehow it has intrinsic value, and it doesn't. It doesn't have value unless it's used, unless it's utilized, unless it's analyzed. And they're not going to analyze it to the fullest extent. There are going to be other people that can support that, that can use that data and expand the value of that data worldwide. One of the things we have to do is convince other faculty members who want to hang on to their data that they can benefit much more both in their careers and to advance the lives of people who live in Kazakhstan and in the world if they let the data go, if they allow the data to be used and utilized. And I think that is sort of a public relations campaign that we have to do. Something to convince people that if you let it sit there on your desk or on your flash drive or in your computer, it doesn't do anything. You'll get 1 or 2 papers out of it. Maybe you contributed to your field to advance the cause of improving the lives, improving institutions of Kazakhstan and Central Asia. If that's all you've done, then you're not allowing that data to really grow legs and start walking and start moving. What you need to do is have other people look at that data and say, I could do something more with this, and take that one step further so we can have a bigger impact. So that one little pebble that falls into the pond doesn't make one little ripple, but makes many larger ripples as well. Because if it's just you looking at that data, it's just one little ripple. But if it's lots of people, there's many more ripples in the pond. I have always had a policy and a philosophy of giving away my data, even when I wasn't supposed to necessarily. But I always gave data to people because I felt like if they could find something more there, after all that work, all those resources, all that time spent to bring that data into some kind of form that could be used and utilized, that if they could find some other uses for it, then I have been successful as a researcher, I have been successful as a human being, that I'm making a real difference in people's lives. And so I have always had the philosophy, ever since I was involved with research, even before I went into public health and went into medicine, when I was still working in physics and engineering, I always had a policy and a philosophy of giving away my data to people that I felt could do something special that will make a difference in people's lives. They have the Masters of Public Health theses archived in the library, allows other researchers to build on the research of our students. It allows them to go further so they can make a difference in people's lives. If you don't do that, then those theses sit in some place, they sit on somebody's shelf, or they gather dust, and maybe someday they'll throw them away in the garbage, and they don't have any impact on people's lives. We want that not only to have impact on other researchers, but future students of public health who can then see what's already been done so they can build on that research. That makes a difference in people's lives. It makes a difference in prolonging their life and in increasing and improving on the quality of life. If we're doing that, then that at least is the first step to making a real difference in Kazakhstan. Open access is not just immediate access, but it has to be information or data that is useful, that's something we can use out there. And much of what we gather, much of what we collect is useful. But we need to not only have access, but to understand what we have and to be able to continue working with that. So it's not just a matter of having a bunch of numbers, but having the context, having the meaning, having the meta-analysis of that data so we know where we're going with it. But that then becomes invaluable. It becomes an invaluable, it has to have value in the way it's structured. It has to have value in the way it's explained so people know what it is. So in the library, we don't want to just have data. We don't just want to have research, but we want to have the context. We want to have the meta-analysis. We want to have the explanation of what it means. So when somebody comes in, they say, whoa, I understand this, and I know where I can take it someplace else. And that's what makes a difference, and that's why we should have open access, because they can take it someplace else. and that someplace else can make a real difference in people's lives.
I believe the benefits are great for all researchers who are working at Nazarbayev University as well as at any other university in Kazakhstan, and for that matter, for any researchers in the world, and not just researchers, but also to the general public, whether we are talking about academia, higher education, secondary education, even elementary education, government, media. So I believe, the information we have currently in the 21st century should be accessible for free. Okay? We are not, of course, talking about commercial or some sensitive information which pertaining to, let's say, to intellectual property or some patents, but we are talking about scientific knowledge, and I believe eventually, and I hope so, that everyone in the world, every journal will have this will establish open access, and this will be a great service to humanity, so that people could benefit. Why should for instance, a certain university pay high fees, for instance, to access certain journals? I mean, because the information there is, should be really available so that it could benefit science in general, society, of course, and everyone in our world. So I believe that would be great, and of course, the researchers are the ones who will benefit a lot, who will, I would say, who would benefit the most in this process, because they are the ones who constantly update their knowledge, and who have, who check this information, I would say, on a periodic basis, and who need this information. And of course, well, let's say at Nazarbayev University, thanks, we have actually this access to most of the resources, international research resources. However, at some other locations in Kazakhstan, but also in just beyond Kazakhstan, in many countries, especially in the third world countries, for instance, they cannot have access to this important scientific information. As a result, they're always lagging behind in their development. They simply don't know what's going on in the world of science. So they, of course, need to have this access. As far as I know, many journals, many leading journals nowadays, they even, for scientists who are publishing in their journals, they even ask to pay, let's say, $2,000, so that the articles, the published articles, will be available for free to the general audience as a free access. I fully support, if, for instance, my research grant allows me to pay this fee, I would be happy to pay it so that anyone else in the world could read it. So, yeah, I believe open access is a future.
Мен осы Назарбаев университетіндегі әріптестеріммен сөйлескеннен кейін бір түсінген ойым, Қазақстанда әсіресе лингвистика саласында ғылыми, академиялық сипаттағы еңбектердің электронды нұсқасының қолжетімсіз екенін түсіндім. Себебі ол кісілер осы Қазақстанда жұмыстарын, ғылыми жұмыстарын жүргізген кезде қазақ ғалымдарының еңбектерін табуда біраз қиындықтарға кездескенін айтты. Олар осы қиындықтарды жергілікті зерттеушілермен сөйлесу арқылы кімдердің зерттегенін, ол кітаптарды қайдан алуға болатынын біліп жатты. Сондықтан менің ойымша бізде қазіргі таңда Қазақстанда жалпы тек лингвистика емес, жалпы қай ғылым саласы болса да, қазақ тіліндегі болсын, орыс тіліндегі болсын, ағылшын тіліндегі болсын, ғылыми, академиялық сипаттағы еңбектердің электронды бір базасын жасау жасалып та жатқан шығар, жасалып жатса оны дамыту, жетілдіру ол әбден қолдайтын іс деп түсінемін. Осы Назарбаев университетінде мысалға біздің департаменттің оқытушылары репозиторийге мақалаларын беріп отырады. Ол яғни басқа да Қазақстанның басқа университеттеріндегі немесе ғылыми институттарындағы зерттеушілерге, докторанттарға, магистранттарға осы еңбектермен танысуға үлкен мүмкіндік береді. Мысалға мен өзім осыған бергеннен кейін маған басқа жоғары оқу орындарынан докторанттардың, магистранттардың хат жазғанын, өз тақырыбыма байланысты сұрақтарын білдім. Олармен қарым-қатынас жасай алдым. Яғни бұл қазіргі таңдағы цифрлы Қазақстан мемлекеттік бағдарламасына да сәйкес келетін жандандыруға тиісті бір жұмыс деп білемін.
What libraries can do to promote open access? This is a generic question. I'd like to address this on two perspectives. One, why open access, and then how open access? What are the correlation between open access and libraries? Our philosophy is based on open access. We provide nascent information to the right user at the right time is our mission. Research across the world thrive on public money. So do libraries. If we are predominantly funded with the taxpayers' money, then why not the results are accessible to them is the big question here. We live in the era of information, the digital era. But the current system of communication of research is crippled by the age-old model that hasn't been updated to take advantage of the 21st century technological revolutions. We are still thriving on the age-old print-based model of communicating research even in this advanced technical age. Even though research is publicly funded, its results aren't. They are still hidden behind barriers of financial, legal, and technical hassles. These artificial barriers are maintained by a group of legacy publishers who decide and control what we access, what the intellectual community access, and they put ahead of us a lot of financial barriers, technical barriers, and legal barriers for accessing the existing knowledge, which is quite unfair. Publishers, of course, are a vital component of the information dissemination cycle. But the wealth of human knowledge should ultimately reach the common man, without any common barriers, because if the knowledge doesn't reach the common man, this will not equip our future generations to innovate and recreate. Going to the second part of the question, how open access? Having said that, libraries have a crucial role in promoting open accessibility to the existing knowledge base. Libraries can coordinate creation and maintenance of institutional repositories for the home institution. Librarians can create subject indexes for these repositories, thus ensuring accessibility and more retrieval of information. And these subject indexes should be based on metadata standards for interoperability and interchange of information. Libraries can involve with institutional stakeholders to create open courseware. Librarians can save from their ever diminishing funds by resorting to use software like open source software like Koha, DSpace, ePrints for digital repositories, Koha for the inter-library library management integrated systems, and other softwares like free softwares like Moodle. Libraries can facilitate searching and retrieval of open access literature with the help of available tools like Google Scholar by integrating the whole a lot of information from the open access journals and open access repositories onto our Discovery knowledge base. Librarians can also advocate with organizations like Spark, who are onto promoting open access movement. Librarians can also help our students in open access publishing and enable a lot of these discovery tools onto our interface. Ultimately, I would say that for libraries, open access movement is a haven to survive and thrive.
So the best part of having an open access platform is it comes for free. It adds up to the wealth of information. So without any barriers, you can get all free journals, documents, institutional repositories and all of these things. Except that you need to have an internet access, a mobile device, or a computer. Since the cost of subscription databases are getting higher and higher each year, libraries deserve to have free access to information. So when the time comes that the library can choose not to spend any money for purchasing online subscriptions, they can divert their budget to purchase maybe some equipment, renovation of building, infrastructure, or maybe training of staff. Since information is not always free, and some libraries do not have that enough funds or budget to keep purchasing all materials, open access helps small libraries, small-sized libraries with limited budget to provide academic and peer-reviewed sources of information. Open textbooks and educational resources, including institutional repositories, can also be reviewed by librarians. You see, librarians have the capacity to evaluate information, whether it's free or not free. In turn, these open access repositories or journals or information, libraries do not need to buy them, especially when libraries need to buy multiple copies of textbooks that are expensive. They don't need to do that, and easily they can just go online and search for authoritative information. There are also open access journals that are competitive. You see, there are journals that receive high impact factors as well. So let's not discredit them because they're just open access, they're not reliable. There are open access journals that are indexed by Scopus or Web of Science, which means the journal has a good quality. In turn, also, librarians can recommend to possible and future authors that they can subscribe and maybe upload their papers or submit their manuscripts to this open access information. Maybe if open access journals or open access repositories have good benefits for the patrons, open access have also challenges for all of us because it's a wide array of online resources. There are always predatory journals or publications, which means the librarian is there to make sure that the patrons can only get the best quality information. So librarians are there to help identify relevant information. So my final word would be always, as a library, as a librarian, let us advocate for free, authoritative, and open access information.